Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ames Public Library. I'm just delighted to welcome you all here this evening on behalf of the library, where it is a pleasure of ours to connect you all to the world of ideas through our collections, of course, our services, and through programs like this that bring people together to learn and to reminisce and to come to better understand their community. I am especially thrilled tonight because this evening's program is the first in this year's annual Ames Historical Society lecture series, which for the first time this year is being brought to you through a partnership between the Ames Public Library and the Ames Historical Society. I think it's just lovely that that partnership is happening here in the Farwell T. Brown Auditorium, which is significant to both the Ames Public Library and Ames Historical Society. So I do warmly welcome you, and I'm just so thrilled you're here, and I hope you will come back to all of the lectures and you will look at our publicity so that you know what's coming up next. At this point, I would like to introduce you to the person who will tell you more about this evening's program and our special presenter. Please welcome Co-President of Ames Historical Society, Kathy Speck.
I feel like I just won a gold medal or something. Like, woo! This podium is really something else. This is the 11th year that we have presented the annual series of talks about local history stories, and we are so pleased to have you here, and we are really excited to be partnering with the public library and to be back in this beautiful space. As you know, we've been at the City Auditorium, and we always were asking for a donation so that we could cover the cost of the rental. So it's really, really nice not to have that donation jar out and to be just free and open to the public and to share these stories with no impediments whatsoever. Just a little reminder, if you have not turned off your cell phone, please do it now. And hopefully you signed up for the door prize drawing on your way in. We're going to burden Steve with the task of drawing a name out at the end of the lecture. So now, if you noticed on the schedule, we are again alternating days, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and we hope that those of you with a permanent commitment on either Tuesday or Wednesday will have an opportunity to be here. Now, one very important thing I need to tell you, if you have gotten the full schedule of all 4 of our lectures through June, I need to tell you that there is a change of topic on the May lecture. Doug Biggs, whom some of you regulars have heard presenting really great ISU stories, got imposed upon by his boss to do something else on May 24th. So he has promised to save the story about the ISU football controversy in 1894 until next year. So you will hear the lecture, you just won't hear it in May. The substitute topic is a fabulous story about Alpha and Emmett Carr and their amazing life fostering children and, incidentally, establishing the first public swimming pool in Ames. So we're going to tell the great Carr story, and those of you who can remember fondly swimming at Carr's pool, I hope will really enjoy that. So same day, May 24th, 7 p.m., so you don't have to change that on your calendars, but just a little change of topic. And there is a flyer with that change out on the table, so if you don't have the schedule, you might want to pick up a new flyer. So I'd especially like to add one other thank you, and that is to all those in the audience who are currently members of the Ames Historical Society. Your memberships support our day-to-day operations and our efforts to preserve our communal story. So if you are not a member of the Ames Historical Society and would like to consider that, pick up a brochure out on the table. So tonight I'm very pleased to introduce Steve Sullivan. He is the Director of Marketing and Community Relations at Mary Greeley Medical Center. And he told me that his department is overseeing this year's hospital centennial celebration. So those of you who get the Ames Tribune, I'm sure that you cannot miss that they are having a huge party, and they are looking for people who were born at Mary Greeley Hospital to come among anyone else who would like to come to the party. I knew Steve, I met Steve for the first time back when he was working at ISU at the news service. And he's been at several other places since then, but he tells me that he really loves his current job at the hospital. So please help me welcome Steve Sullivan.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I've been at Mary Greeley for 4 years, which obviously makes me an expert on its century-long history. I was very pleased to have been asked to do this right up until the time I had to put the presentation together. There's no central repository for all things Mary Greeley. Our history is literally everywhere. It's in boxes in my office. It's in the State Historical Society, or Ames Historical Society. Some of it's at the State Historical Society. It's everywhere. So pulling that all together into some sort of cohesive presentation was more than a challenge. But this provided an opportunity for us to do this. I want to, first of all, thank a few people. Andrew Zalaski being one of them. He had my position at the hospital, I think back in the 50s. I'm not sure. 50. Let's just go with that. He's not here. We can say whatever we want. But Andrew's been helping us compile a historical timeline of the hospital, which will be on our website very soon. So a lot of the work he did has gone into this presentation. John Rodeloso, who is Director of Facilities at the hospital, I went to him multiple times saying, what is this picture of? And what year was it taken? And he would tell me because he's brilliant at that, just knowing the facility. Jessica Carter, who's on my staff, who spent 2 days putting this all together, scanning photos and everything for me. And there's this really lovely young woman with a British accent, I think, who works upstairs here, and she shows me how to work the microfiche machine, because I can never remember. And she just helped me again. Okay, I think that was everything. I have 2 goals with this presentation. First of all, I want you all to walk out of here with a deeper understanding and appreciation for Wallace and Mary Greeley. And the other thing is I want you to walk out of here very proud of your hospital. And the presentation is mostly going to focus on, just compiling 100 years of a hospital into a 30 to 40 minute presentation. Healthcare changes constantly, and it's always evolving. So, and we haven't done a stellar job of keeping a nice, cohesive timeline to it. So, you've got what we're mostly going to be focusing on is how the hospital has grown to serve the region it serves, and that's primarily in terms of our facilities and our services. But first, we're going to start off with the Greeleys, and there's a reason we call this presentation a most magnificent gift. In December 20th, 1915, the Ames Evening Times reported on the construction of the building. And in that story, they wrote, the Mary Greeley Memorial Hospital will be a most magnificent gift and an institution that has been greatly needed by Ames. And there are our founders, Captain Wallace Greeley and Mary Greeley. You've seen those pictures time and again because they are the only ones that exist. There are some others, but it's complicated. So these are the ones, this is really all we have. They were both born in New York, and they met at a teacher's institute. She was a teacher and he was a headmaster. They married in 1866. They moved to Iowa in 1868, and they originally farmed. He was originally a farmer. They had 2 children who died in infancy. And that tragedy cannot be understated, of course. It's a loss of a child, but really, they didn't have family in this area. So a lot of those archival materials we might still have are simply gone because there was just nobody to hold on to them here. The house that they built is now Adams Funeral Home, which is right over there somewhere. And so that's the original building there. They entertain there quite frequently. That is Captain Wallace Greeley. standing in front of his bank. After farming, he went into the banking business. He became a very successful businessman. There is this great story about this picture. The photo appearing with this article, this is from a Ames newspaper announcing his death, shows the real Captain Greeley as taken but a few days before his death. He was standing on the east side of the Union National Bank. It is a characteristic picture of him, for when the photographer asked him to lift his hat, there came back the reply, "What for?" It is, you gotta love the way they wrote back then. It is noticeable the picture is taken as the shadows were lengthening that January afternoon. So were the shadows lengthening for Captain Greeley, but little did we suspect it. As noted, he opened a very prosperous bank. He served as mayor of Ames several times. He was a state representative. And he died of a stroke in his home. And it was front page news, as you can tell. Mary Greeley, her maiden name is Young, she was petite, she was 4'10". By all reports, she was very shy. Yet she held, once a year, she held a soiree, as they say, back then at their home for the community. She was also very devoted to the arts, and she herself was reported to be a fairly talented painter. And her home was, many of her pieces were displayed in their home. She was devoted to this institution we are in now. She gave the land for the original building. She and her husband gave the land for the original building for the library, and she served on the original board of trustees. She was a charter member of the PEO, and she was a member of the Congregational Church, which is now the United Church of Christ. She died of pernicious anemia. She was very ill in the final time of her life, and by one report, she was in a state of comatosis at the end, with her husband right there near her, and her sister was also on hand. And this is the only picture we have of her butt. But this is a picture taken on the steps of the United Church of Christ. She's in there somewhere. But at 4'10", there's a good chance she's being blocked by a child. I like to think that maybe that's her. I don't know why. I've looked at that portrait so many times. It just seemed to have the same countenance, but who knows? I've reached out to family, trying to track something else down, but without much luck. The family is very proud of the name Greeley also. Captain Greeley was the second cousin of the legendary Horace Greeley. When he died, the estate was left to his sister and his three nieces, one of whom was Blanche Greeley Wilson. Blanche had a daughter named Lynn, who has a daughter named Kristen Greeley Kunkelberg, who works for the state of New Jersey. It has nothing to do with bridges. Again, front page news. And that picture. She may be gone, but the picture never dies. I got a little side story for you here. About the same time the hospital was being built, Captain Greeley built a mausoleum at the Ames Cemetery. It was built in 1915. Wallace is there, Mary is there, and there are these little like trundle beds on the bottom, and that's where her parents are. They don't have family in the area, as noted, and so while the city has cared for the mausoleum as best as they can, there's no real family monitoring it very well. So this is a long story, and it's actually worth a presentation on its own, and someday the whole story will be told. But there was a gentleman named Mike Ness who was a materials management director at the hospital. And I had been at the hospital for just a short time, and I was walking to my office, and he pulled up in his car and said, "Hey, get in, I want to show you something." And I'm like, "Okay." And he took me to the cemetery, and I was like, "Why is he taking me to the cemetery? I just started here, and I barely know this guy." Well, he was taking me to the Greeley Mausoleum because when the mausoleum was built, there were stained glass windows on both sides of it. And those windows had been lost to time, and there were some metal sheets on these grated windows. Mike, through a series of unusual circumstances, found out where one of them was. It was in pieces, it was in shards, and eventually I got it. We had it restored, and that's what it looks like. And yeah, it's one, you gotta hear the whole story, it's great. The second one we thought was gone forever. But I went to the mausoleum because we wanted, well, let's clean it up. Because the mausoleum had these big slabs of marble that had fallen down over the years. We had all that cleaned up and all that removed. And there was a pile of animal dung in the corner. Critters had gotten in there. The remains weren't disturbed at all, but there was a pile. So cemetery guys cleaned it up, and I'd gone back in and looked on the floor. I said, "What is that?" And I found a piece of stained glass, and it was the second stained glass window. So I cleaned it up, and I was so glad I worked at a place that has a lot of Purell, because, and I took it to a car wash right afterwards, and it was nasty. Anyway, that's been restored too. They're both beautiful. So what are we going to do with them? We're not putting them back in the cemetery. We're not going to put them back in the mausoleum. We have, however, we worked with Orning Glass and SignPro. And Orning Glass made us some new windows of this very sturdy material, and SignPro made us an applique from a picture. They made us this beautiful applique. So the stained glass windows are, in a sense, in spirit, back at the mausoleum. So they look very nice. So there's light coming back in there. We're very pleased about that. One of these, the original one that we got back, is going to go into the main lobby of the hospital. It'll be on display there. So where's the second one going to go? It's going to go right here. The library's getting the one that was buried under the animals, but they get a better story with it. So anyway, but it's beautiful and it's great. And it's going to be here somewhere. I don't know where Lynn's going to put it, but we are going to give it to the library on permanent loan. And because we think a lot more people will be able to see it, and there's a nice connection there. And it's a reminder that they did more than the hospital. They contributed an immense amount to this community. Mary Greeley Memorial Hospital. I think we sometimes talk about, he mourned her loss deeply. There are references and coverage of his death about him not having seen the world the same way since she left. And it was clearly devastating for him. So he wanted to do something in her memory. And this really, we talk about, in his mourning, he wanted to build this hospital. And this really is, I think we have to ultimately look at this building as an act of love, not only for a man for his wife, but a man for his community too. So he really took it upon himself to have the hospital built. And on September 24th, 1916, it was dedicated. It was attended by 2,000 people. It was at Douglas and 12th, and the hospital faced Douglas. And later on in the presentation, we have a picture of the doorway. I love this doorway. I so wish we had kept the doorway some way, somehow, but it's gone with the ages. But this faced Douglas. And at the dedication, he said, "It affords me great pleasure, more than words can express, that I contribute something toward the welfare of not only those now in need, but also for those who will be here long after we have passed." And I think, as we go on in this presentation, you'll see we have done exactly that. The hospital was dedicated in September, but it actually did not open until December 21st. They were still having to get stuff for it. When it opened, it was a Thursday. They had an open house Wednesday. It was from 1 to 9 p.m. for the inspection of the public. And then Thursday morning, the doors of the hospital will be thrown open for the reception of patients. The hospital is without a doubt the most modern, this is from the Ames Evening Times, the most modern and complete in the state of Iowa. The rooms are now all furnished, each having a beautiful dresser, 2 rugs, and 2 chairs, in addition to the regulation hospital bed. The operating room represents the last word in convenience and equipment, and throughout the entire building there prevails a cleanliness. It mattered even then. A cleanliness and regulated represents the last word in convenience and equipment, and throughout environment prevails a cleanliness and efficient arrangement that inspires comfort and perfect attention for the patients. Another newspaper, the Mary Greeley Memorial Hospital is a thing of beauty, a joy forever, and fills the want which has so long existed in Ames. As the people of the city generally know, the hospital comes from Captain Greeley, banker, capitalist, and above all, philanthropist. There could not be a finer building in the entire state. It was complete for the purpose for which it was erected. The latest machinery, instruments, sanitary condition, and demands for alleviating pain and lessening suffering have been adopted, and the huge building of tinted, hard-pressed brick stands as a monument to the memory of the lady whose name it bears. They were pretty proud of it. Probably appropriate, the first patient was an Iowa State student. J.A. Shantz enters new hospital for operation. He was a senior in vet med, and he has the distinction of being the first patient to enter the hospital, underwent an operation this morning. This would have been Thursday, December 21st. Didn't say what kind of operation. Mr. Shantz hailed from Villisca. Possibly it was an axe wound. The second... I just came up with that. The second patient admitted to the hospital on the opening day was C.E. DeVore, who was also a surgical patient. If you look on the side of the building you see there, there were solariums. It was a solarium on the south side. There were 3 stories there, so people could relax. There were 30 patient rooms, as reported by one paper. This was at the dedication. This line came from. Each beautifully finished, and when finished, they will be a delight to those who may occupy them. Because for surgery took place on the opening day. The operating rooms are on the north end. So we're just going to pop through some stuff as the building developed. 1924, our first X-ray equipment got installed. 1939, we always refer to sections of the building. Well, that's in the 60 part, that's in the 70s part, that's in the 38 part. So 39, and you see references to it, like 38's when it was built and 39 when it was open, but we called this section of 39 building. We added 40 more beds. And then in 1950, our emergency department opened. So you can kind of see the 2 sections there of the hospital. That's the 16 section and the 39 section. 1954, the Mary Greeley Auxiliary is established. And they've been going strong ever since. They had this cart that they went around with, sort of like, at a ballpark or something. So they had candy and gum and magazines. It looks like Harper's Bazaar there. And so that was sort of the original gift shop. Right now the auxiliary operates the gift shop and raises a lot of money via that and some other events. And they contribute to scholarships and other various needs of the hospital. But they've been around for a good long time. And when we get the timeline up on the website, I encourage you all to check it out because there'll be a lot more detail. There's a whole big list of everything they've done. Okay, 1961, another edition. And again, why are we doing this? Because the need is there. Even early on, while this hospital was given to Ames, early on it was assumed that people from throughout Story County and surrounding counties would be coming to this hospital, and obviously they did because the need to grow was constant. The 1961 edition, more beds for the OB unit and the medical surgical units, and we expanded OR and lab and X-ray. McFarland Clinic. That's the building. You all know the building. I love this photo. That's their tube system back in the 60s. You gotta love the fashion, and the tubes are cool. So they opened, and it's important to add this because this was their new building. They built right next to the hospital. Eventually, with their expansion, a tunnel, a hallway was connected to the hospital. We have a very unique situation in this community. The hospital is city-owned, not tax-supported, nonprofit. McFarland is physician-owned and for-profit. We have a symbiotic relationship. We are an attraction for the folks they're trying to hire. The strengths of our programs are tied very much to the skills of the clinic. And a lot of people think we're one and the same, and that's okay, for the most part. But not a lot of operations have that. I've thrown in a few highlight moments here. This picture is from an Ames Tribune article, and in 1965, a group of researchers, include David Carlson, Leon Arp, James Varnum, J. Ben Buck, and Dr. William McCormick, they invented a infant respirator, and it was refined at Mary Greeley. It helped babies in distress and got a lot of praise. It won some national engineering awards. And it's still talked about. This comes up every once in a while. It is currently at the State Historical Society. That reproduction is actually better than the actual picture. 1968, the psychiatric unit opened, known as Behavior Health now, and the ICCU. That picture there, we're actually thinking about bringing those hats back for the centennial. You know, I might wear one. That's a nurse at the ICCU, and they're looking at heart monitors. The building here, which you probably don't recognize because it's not covered in plastic, that's in 1970. That's the first 3 floors of what we call the South Tower. They're built in 1970. They added 8 more beds, ICCU, space for ICCU, administration, and the business office. We can skip this one. I'm kidding, Melissa. The foundation was established. We like to talk about this hospital is the result of a philanthropic act. And Captain Greeley's generosity has inspired generations of other people to act in the same way. And gifts from generous donors have resulted in the William R. Bliss Cancer Center, the Israel Family Hospice House, Diabetes and Nutrition Education Center, and the North Addition, and many other things, big and small. We'll talk about another one of those very soon. 1972, there was a change in hospital governance. There was a special committee of the City Council that was studying the future management of the hospital, management, control, and government of the hospital. They recommended, this special committee recommended a 5-member board. And it was a complicated issue because the hospital was a gift to the community. It was under the auspices of the City Council, and there were certain rules and regulations. Home rule came into play in the decision to make this happen ultimately. The first members elected in 1973 were James Hilton, Harold Newell, and LaDonna Allen, and 2 more wound up being appointed by the mayor, Marvin Walter, and Marion Pegler. Interestingly enough, there was another big issue going on at this time, because at about this same time, the hospital decided to discontinue the practice of releasing the names of patients in the hospital, unless the patients said okay. And the Ames Tribune was none too happy about it. So there was a lot of consternation, but the hospital stuck with its policy, excuse me, which came around primarily because of concerns about patient privacy, but also there was concerns about maybe there were too many visitors, and they were maybe impeding the healing process of patients. So it was a way to not let everybody know that this person was in the hospital, so we better go see him. And I threw this in here now because, as I noted, we went from being primarily governed by the city council to governed by a board of trustees, even though we still had a relationship with the city and still do today, of course. For the longest time, the information system, the computer systems of the hospital were operated by the city. But there was some thinking that the IT needs of healthcare are going to explode. So that needed to change up, and it changed up in 1991 in July. So that's when the hospital got its own information systems program. And just some interesting statistics here that were actually shared last night at a trustees meeting. 1991, we had 10 servers and less than 50 PCs. 2002, we had 20 servers, 300 PCs. And now we have 313 servers and more than 1,500 PCs. And if you saw the list of systems they oversee, it's mind-boggling. And it's a pretty tight team, and they do amazing work. 1973, up until that point, the ambulance services in the hospital were being provided by, for the community, were being provided by funeral homes. And there were some financial issues, and they just couldn't do it anymore. So we took it over. We were the first paramedic ambulance service. I think we were the first hospital in the state to offer an ambulance service. It is now Mobile Intensive Care Services. That's one of the original ambulances up there. They're much cooler looking now, but I kind of dig the door. And they had the first weekend of service, they had 3 calls. Today we have 80 calls a week. In 1976, our NICU, our neonatal care, opens. We get additional operating rooms and the short stay unit. And you had to go through the ER, and one of the nurses with the hats greet you to take you. It was the second floor of the West Wing, and we were the first hospital in Iowa. That's one of the things I've learned through this. We were the first hospital in Iowa with a short stay, basically ambulatory care unit. They wanted to do it then to get people on their way, save them some money, and free up hospital beds for people who needed to stay more than a day. In 1979, we got our CT scanners installed in radiology. And in 1980, 3 floors are added to the South Tower. That gave us more space for OB, pediatrics, and behavioral health. Ironically, those are the 3 departments, along with rehab and wellness, that are still in the South Tower. All the other clinical areas and patient care areas have moved over to the new West Tower. That building is still standing. It's still in use, but it looks completely different on the outside because we stripped all that those concrete flanges off, and it took about 100 years, but we got it done, and it looks terrific. And here's another cool little story. Back in the 80s, there were a lot of talk about, around that time, a lot of test tube babies. This is not a test tube baby. It's sometimes referred to that, but it's a very complicated fertilization process. A lot of people in the state were trying it. It happened first with McFarland and Mary Greeley, so the first baby in the state through this process called gamete interfallopian transfer, or appropriately GIFT, was born at Mary Greeley. And got some press coverage there. We need to look her up and get her involved with the reunion. 1986, we got a linear accelerator added to radiology, and with that came the William R. Bliss Cancer Center, which includes hematology and oncology of McFarland Clinic, and the Cancer Resource Center, which is supported by the foundation and provides amazing services for folks going on who are involved in a cancer journey, both patients and families, including a free wig boutique. If you're going through a cancer experience and you lose your hair, wigs can cost you a few bucks, but we have a program where we provide them for free that is supported by donors. It's a coordinated service line. It was made possible by a gift from the Bliss family. And we're very excited. Just recently, we got some great news. We have been designated as a breast cancer center by, I can't remember the name of the organization, but it's big and it's important and it's really cool. Homeward opens. For a long time, there was a program called Visiting Nurses, and there was a whole lot of discussion in the community about their future and who should be doing this. And ultimately, a variety of these services landed at the hospital under the umbrella name of Homeward. So there was hospice, and there was home health care and home medical equipment. It is now known as Mary Greeley Home Health Services. It's still home health, it's still hospice, and we still have home medical equipment. That's sort of all part of that program. They do a number of things, include they take care of patients in a 50-mile radius of Ames. They also, with considerable volunteer help, do Meals on Wheels. I think there's a few Meals on Wheels people in this room, as a matter of fact. Cardiac cath lab opened in 1987, and it has continued to grow since then. And in 2004, interventional cardiology services were introduced. Again, working very closely with McFarland. And we just added 2 new cardiologists to the team. They're fantastic. I've had the pleasure of working with them both. Not on my heart, but fortunately, but on what I usually do. So again, a growth in services, addressing needs in the community, ambulance service, there's nobody to do it, natural will take care of it. Home health services, there's some issues there, we need to figure them out, we're there to take care of it. Cardiac cath lab, heart care in the area. We work very closely with Iowa Heart too. Those partnerships, the partnerships we have with other providers go well beyond McFarland. McFarland's the big dog, but we have Iowa Heart, and we have Wolf Clinic, and we have Dorn Clinic, and a number of others. Okay. We added another section to the building, and I came up with the key thing here is the cafeteria. That circle thing there is the roof of the cafeteria, and our number of licensed bed at this time went up to 220, and that's where we are now. That's our licensed count. We're just a little under that, but which is room for growth should we need it. Again, all that brick area has gone through a lot of work, and it's all different. And very soon the cafeteria is going to go through. If you've been in their cafeteria recently, our cafeteria is great, by the way, and it's going to go through a renovation very soon. Because why stop now? I think this is when this went in, but it's pretty much how they do it. It's the MRI, because we recently just got a new one. And we have this section of the roof. It just kind of unscrews, oddly enough. And it takes obviously a bunch of guys to lift it and hoist it away. And then they bring in they take out the old one, which is huge and enormous, and then they bring in the new one. And actually they have to redo the room, because it's probably heavier. They have to redo the room, and then they put the new one in. So again, meeting the needs of the community, making sure we have the technology to provide the best care possible. Okay, 1996, New West Edition, and a 3-story parking garage. I thought you'd like the snow picture. So you can see all that going up. And we launched the first nurse service, which we still have. I can't remember who had it before us, but our short stay unit got bigger. We had a sleep disorders clinic added, a medical library, and more office and storage space. And that's important to us because we never have enough storage space, so that's why I included it. Okay. That building they dedicated in 1916, we knocked it down in 1997. Yeah. So it was time for it to come down to make way for the North Addition. So we have several pictures of this. It's kind of it's definitely end of an era. And remember the building, the original building faced Douglas, but everything was kind of turning around and facing the other direction. Now the main entrance. And in fact, I don't know if you can see it. Yes, you can. The original door, which is, fortunately, I brought my own pointer. Right here, that was a loading dock door that went to the original door of the building. That little thing right there is still there. But all this came down. Oh, and then 1998, Israel Family Hospice House, gift from the Israel family. Very important service. Some people lose sight of the fact that it's connected with Mary Greeley because it's a bit of a drive from the main hospital, but it's very much a part of our services. And here's a little sidebar. Mozart was a patient at the hospital. Or was it Salieri? I can't remember. In 1998, we began, you ever in the hospital and you hear the song played over? That's because a baby was born. We started with Schumann's Scenes from Childhood to announce a new baby, and it played throughout the hospital. We still do it. I don't know when we switched, but we switched, and now it's Mozart's Sonata in A that you hear. All right, the North Addition opens. Took 2 years to build it. It includes the outpatient services of the William R. Bliss Cancer Center, which includes McFarland Oncology. It also has the Cancer Resource Center. Radiation oncology is there on the first floor. We have the Diabetes and Nutrition Education Center is up there. Cardiac rehab is up there. And our external relations folks are up there, the volunteers. And it also has Bessie Myers Auditorium. And if you've ever been in there, see the picture over here, that's what you're sitting on. These big slabs of cement, seats 150 people. That was the Bessie Myers is the result of a gift that came out of the blue. No one really knew Bessie was around. And when she passed away, she left the hospital a gift. And that turned into our 150-seat auditorium, which gets an immense amount of use. Also our conference rooms, A, B, and C, which get frequent use. If you ever come to one of the gift shop sales, for example, you will be going to that space. And we got some additional operating rooms. I think we have 14 now. And speaking of OR, again, another example of how we are keeping up with the technology that's out there. And that's with our robot-assisted surgery program. And it's really grown. It started out with doing general surgery, gynecological surgery, and urological surgery. We added a second robot in 2015. This technology, a lot of younger surgeons are coming up and they're being trained in this, and it's an expectation. So huge benefits for patients. I've had the privilege of observing some of our surgeons work with this machinery. It's fascinating. Most recently, I watched a lung surgery, Dr. Taylor. I'm guessing a lot of people in here know him. He's the first surgeon in the state to be certified to do lung surgery with a robot. Yeah, there's only one. Dr. Partridge, right there. He was the first surgeon in the state to be certified to do single-site general surgery. That's pretty much when they pull your gallbladder out of your navel. I watched it. It's better than the rabbit out of the hat thing. It's really cool. I also watched Taylor perform a thoracic surgery. And you have to imagine thoracic surgery, you have to, with normal lung surgery where you can take a lobe, you have to slice open the person's side and open those ribs up. With this, you're throwing in through 3 small incisions, you're inserting your devices and doing it all that way. I've watched several surgeries. It's the first time I was standing, but I was literally on the edge of my seat. It's amazing, and I've known people who've gone through it. I have friends who've gone through it, and it's amazing. Patients have developed an awareness of it, and they're very accepting. They don't, Taylor's like, listen, I can do this robotically, and they said, okay. Literally, I've talked to 2 of them. They both think, yeah. They've had friends who've done it. They know Taylor's reputation. They know our reputation. And those folks back there, you can't underestimate them. Those 3 nurses and the other folks, they have to go through the same training that the doctors do in most cases, to most extent. And they're a huge part of the success of this program. And you saw that? That's what the operating rooms used to look like. I don't know when this was, but I keep thinking of that show Dexter whenever I see it. But I love this picture, and I don't know why, but that's what the ORs used to look like. Probably that vet med guy. That's the one. Okay. The project I talked about earlier, Extraordinary Visions, a lot of you have heard about this, I'm guessing, and are probably maybe even contributed to it. It's the largest capital project in our history. It was a $130 million project, funded in part by philanthropic giving. Groundbreaking. It was September 2011. We're not done. We're real close. Trust me. We're very close. And we've gotten really so much better at these groundbreaking ceremonies. This one's from the mid-50s. No, actually, I take it back. This is the mid-70s. I think it's when we were putting in our cobalt unit, which was used for cancer treatment. And I think this gentleman's suit was also given to the State Historical Society. I hope he's not here. That would be awful. Anyway, yeah, so, but he does have a shovel. Somebody recognize these folks? Oh, good. Okay. Okay, more technology. Our TrueBeam linear accelerator. You remember I told you when we got a linear accelerator that launched the William R. Bliss Cancer Center. Back in 2012, we got the TrueBeam. This is advanced radiation oncology technology. We were the 2nd hospital in the state to get it. That's Dr. Shane Hopkins right there. And I wanted to show you, I think it's important to show this technology with people, because without these skilled folks, whether it's a surgeon or a dosimetrist, plotting the surgical procedure, using the doctor's information and helping him out, this stuff is meaningless without those people connected to it. Pink glove dance. There's a reason I put this in here. Well, first, it's a really cool story. Back in 2013, we entered the National Pink Glove Dance video competition. It's to raise awareness of breast cancer. Hospitals from all over the country entered videos. We came in 3rd, which for me was like winning 1st place. It was a great video. We got a lot of community involvement in it. And really, I look at this as this is when we really saw the value of video in our marketing and our storytelling, and also social media. Social media played a huge role in getting out the vote. Traditional media did too, of course. But social media, video, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, played a huge role in the success of this. And these are all tools we continue to use to our great advantage. We have some really strong edge there in terms of not really our ability to tell the story, but really just the stories we have to tell, and our patients' willingness to share them, and our patients' willingness to be part of them. We may do it again sometime soon. And remember that we broke ground in 2011, and the West Tower opened up in 2014. Bigger rooms, Very nice rooms. We hear gobs of compliments about them. 2 floors were added to the west addition that came off the cafeteria right over there. So 2 floors were added there. And then this is actually a 6-story tower. The 6th floor is empty for future growth. When the north addition was built, there was also empty space in that. And the thinking was, it'll be filled up in 10 years maybe, but we have it. It was filled in 6 or maybe 8, but it didn't take 10 years to fill it. So we have a 6th floor that's empty for future growth. Portion of the 5th floor, which is oncology, is also available for future growth. And off the 5th floor is a really beautiful rooftop garden, which is very popular with visitors and staff, especially kids, because there's a playground. And then we had 3rd and 4th floor, and very nice lobby area. This is actually the discharge. I always say discharge entrance, which is an oxymoron, but I don't know what else to call it. So but it's been serving as our main entrance. When the new main entrance opens in a few weeks, that will go back to being a discharge. Okay. Next month, the emergency department will open. It's 70% bigger than what we have now. It has rooms for a number of services, very specific services, including behavioral health. Our ED often winds up housing behavioral health patients. They often start in our ED, and we now have specific space for them. The big focus is, of course, like everything, patient care, patient safety. I've had the opportunity to walk through the space. It's beautiful. Open house, mark your calendars. April 23rd, we'll be having an open house. You're all welcome to come and walk through and see our new ED. You can go into the new lobby, which will be open then, and you can see the stained glass window, which will be there. And the Skywalk, which, and the sign, this sign just went up last week, so the new sign's over there. So we have the Skywalk, which will be very nice when the weather's rotten. The main floor entrance will probably take a little longer to open because we have to have some asphalt work done. And we have to wait for the right season, right weather. You'll notice this little part that's sort of punched out a bit. That's to designate the emergency department entrance. The emergency department's now on the side of the hospital facing Duff. It'll be up front facing 11th Street now. So you'll have the discharge, you'll have the main entrance, you'll have the ED, all right there. Very convenient. And so there'll be some parking out here for the ED. But it's going to be very nice. We serve about 26,000 people a year in the ED. We needed a bigger one. And there's some sneak peek for you. That's a little closer up to, and that's the inside. There's this really beautiful stairway that comes off the Skywalk, and the Skywalk will be right there by the cafeteria. So they'll have an entrance there, and the lab, this sort of area right here. The laboratory will be right there. So again, very easy, convenient access right across the way, and there you go. The stained glass window there's a fake fireplace right there. It'll be nice. It'll be nice. And this guy, there's a donor thing going here, and the stained glass window is going somewhere in here. And this is for dramatic entrances, because I've walked down there and you can't help, it's like Gloria Swanson and Sunset Boulevard coming down there. And this is my last slide. I love this picture. That's the original doorway. And we always quote that, it affords me great pleasure. I actually like this. He said this before. My purpose in the erection of this building is not for any credit that may accrue to me individually, but to the memory of one I can never forget. And again, you have to remember what he was going through. This is an act of love, this hospital. In tendering you this gift, I trust that it will be received in the same spirit which Mrs. Greeley would have wished were she here. And I hope that the loyal people of Ames will tenderly guard its keeping and make it a home for many needy and afflicted persons whose care will be entrusted to them during the future of this institution. And I just want to point out, like I said, I wanted you to be aware of who these folks were and what they gave this community. And I want you to walk out proud. There's a group called Leapfrog that gives an award for patient safety twice a year. They've been doing it for about 4 years. They've done it 8 times. One hospital in the state has gotten an A every single time. That's your hospital. We've been named a top performer on key quality measures for 3 years in a row by the Joint Commission. Those are the big guys who tell you you're doing your job right and if you're doing it wrong. We've been named a top Iowa workplace by the Des Moines Register for 3 years in a row. For 2 years in a row, we're one of the most wired hospitals in the state. And that's meeting rigorous requirements for information technology, for patients, patient safety, information safety. We were recognized with the top award, top honor for Iowa Recognition of Performance Excellence. We were just, our OB unit, Birthways, was just designated a baby-friendly. We're the second hospital, but we're the biggest hospital to receive that designation. And we just, they were also just received one of the first Blue Distinction designations by Wellmark, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So, with that, thank you. Happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Before Mary Greeley was established, did they rely on hospitalization in Des Moines, or what sort of services were available for those that needed them?
I think I have the answer to that. I think there was a facility of some sort in Nevada. It wasn't Story County Medical, but. That's it. Yep. The Iowa Agricultural College had a small hospital on campus that was open half days beginning 1885. Prior to 1916, though, the hospital had no hospital facilities. The Ames community had no hospital facilities for its citizens. The closest hospital was a sanitarium operated by the Seventh-day Adventist in Nevada. An Ames physician group advised Captain Greeley to purchase the land between 11th and 12th Street and the east side of Douglas. They thought it would provide an opportunity for future expansion, which it certainly did. And the construction began in 1915. So obviously there was the need was well known, and the community was growing, and Captain Greeley played a bit of a fairly significant role in the growth of the community too. So obviously he was a pretty smart guy, and he was a pretty smart guy with money, and he knew what to invest in, from all the records and all the statements about him. So. He saw the need as well, worked with the right people to get it going. Yes?
Can you tell us about some of the things you have going on this year with your centennial celebration?
Centennial celebration? Yeah. Well, we have a lot of things going on this year anyway. The ED is going to be opening up, and again, April 23rd, we'll be having an open house for the public to come through the ED and come see the new main entrance in the Skywalk. On August 7th, we are having a birthday party. It is for everybody to come to celebrate the hospital. We'll have stuff for kids. We're going to have some music, and we're going to have a number of hospital departments are going to be there. But when we were trying to figure out healthcare changes constantly, and how do we, recognize that we've been around for 100 years, and we thought, well, what about that day you establish a relationship with our hospital? And that's the day you were born. So we thought, well, let's have a reunion of everybody born here. That would be fun. And then we thought, I wonder if there's a world record for that. And there is. It was like, when I looked it up, it was like 954, and it was a hospital in Hong Kong. And now it's 1,221. Somebody in the Philippines got on the act, and the hospital in the Philippines currently holds a record at 1,221. We have 11 births a year, 1,100 births a year at Mary Greeley. I kind of think we can beat it. we've been putting the word out about it, and we're like, I want to hear your stories about, the day you were born, the day you delivered. We got some great stories. We're running several pages of them in the next issue of the magazine that'll be out in April. So they're wonderful, and I'm like, oh, give me a Blizzard story. I want a Blizzard story. I got a Blizzard story. It's a great Blizzard story. And these are stories people pass down their whole life, My mother talks about how much I weighed and how I gained weight instead of losing weight, which is, I maintain that practice. But these are stories people pass down. So we're going to have a reunion of people born at the same hospital with the goal of setting a new Guinness World Record. And we'll get a lot of attention for it, and it'll be very cool. And a lot of people are very excited about it. If you were born at Mary Greeley, if you have friends who were born at Mary Greeley, if your children were born at Mary Greeley, look at your birth certificate. The Guinness people are really picky. You have to show a birth certificate at the event. Please check your birth certificate. Have your friends, your family members check their birth certificate. Make sure it says Mary Greeley. If it does not, contact me. We have other ways. We have other ways. We can verify. And then you'll bring a letter of verification and your birth certificate, and we'll give you a little bracelet. And the check-in will take a little bit. The actual gathering will take about 15 minutes. We'll get a bunch of pictures. We'll make a bunch of noise, and we'll set a new world record. And then you can go to the bouncy house. Yes?
I want to know whether you accept as a birth certificate what is pasted in my baby book.
If it says Mary...
To be the one that's...
No, that's fine. If it's a copy, I think we'll be fine. Okay. Yeah. Just have to bring it with you. Yeah.
So, I noticed that you guys are called Mary Greeley Medical Center now.
Yeah.
It was originally founded as the Mary Greeley Memorial Hospital.
Yes.
When did that name change take place?
It actually has gone through a couple name changes. And when I got this presentation done, I thought to myself, someone's going to ask me when the name changed. And I actually don't know, but I'm going to try and figure it out because it's gone through 2 or 3 name changes. So I'm going to try and figure that out when that all happened. And I'll let you know. Yes.
Approximately how many employees does the hospital have, and how many are joined with McFarland?
We don't. My bosses in the back there can correct me, but we have about 1,350 employees, and I don't really think any of them are joint with McFarland. No. But McFarland has a big role in the development of the hospital, and the hospital has a big role in the development of McFarland. But it's there's some separation there. Yes.
Do the descendants of the Greeleys ever come back? And are they coming to the office?
I don't. They may know about it now. I'm in. I think LinkedIn is a really silly thing in many ways, but you can really find people on it if you know how to do it. And that's how I found Kristen Greeley Kugelman, who is the daughter of Lynn, who is the daughter of Blanche, who is the niece of Wallace. I think they're interested in what's happening with us. I think they probably brag about Horace Greeley more than Wallace. But maybe we can change that up. We'll definitely make them aware. They're supposed to get back to me. They were going to check if they had anything still. If not, I may track down the other 2 sisters' descendants. Blanche is no longer with us. I know that. Questions? Thank you. This has been terrific. Appreciate it.